Burmis here, and make no mistake about it, heads will roll on Capitol Hill after this hearing. Now, I've not watched the whole hearing, and that's why I'm only going to bring you what Lindsey Graham and Ben Sasse had to say today before the Federal Bureau of Prisons, was the director. And by the way, this director was brought online right now on my YouTube feed, and I guess we are back on YouTube, but really been killing me lately, YouTube. I don't understand what's going on. It must be the fact I'm working with a third-party app. There's no reason that my stream health should be that at all. I've done everything possible. It really makes me sad, but that's okay. We're just gonna get to it. So let's play both Lindsey Graham and then Ben Sasse. Ben Sasse, I think, did a better job. Lindsey Graham at one moment actually rolls his, goes, oh, when they're talking about whether or not he was on suicide watch at the time of his actual suicide.
This concludes my formal statement, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much. As I indicated in my opening statement, I wanted to talk about the death of Mr. Epstein. Do you concur with the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was the finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
How could this have happened?
Unfortunately, sir, the death and the whole situation is still under the investigation of the FBI and the Inspector General's office, and I'm really not at liberty to discuss specifics of this case. I can discuss issues around institutional operations, but I can't specifically talk about that particular issue.
Okay. With a case this high profile, there's got to be either major malfunction of the system or a criminal enterprise at foot to allow this to happen. So are you looking at both? Is the FBI looking at both?
If the FBI is involved, then they are looking at criminal enterprise, yes.
So let's stop right there. And by the way, thank you very much, Peaceful Warrior. Murder, watch more like it. That's the super chat right there. So what have we learned right now? One, I can't talk about it. Number two, when we talk about suicide, she didn't answer whether or not she thought it was suicide, just what the coroner's report said. And then she said both the FBI and the Inspector General are still investigating the matter, so she can't talk about it. Let's continue.
Do we have people in custody today of this high-profile nature? Have we done anything to adjust since Mr. Epstein's death?
Sir, we take every inmate's life very seriously in the Bureau of Prisons. A high-profile inmate is no more important or significant in terms of our operations than just the average inmate that comes our way.
When I mean high-profile, somebody's on a suicide watch.
I would like to explain our suicide watch system, if I may. I can't talk.
Now let's stop right there. Notice how she moves on to the suicide watch, and she says that everybody is treated the same. That's total insanity. And Ben Sasse brings up how that's total insanity. If you have a high-profile prisoner, especially somebody who could roll on other high-profile criminals, why should they be treated the same as somebody who's low risk, has already faced trial, isn't at any risk of either committing suicide or having their life taken? And notice now she's going to move on to the suicide watch, where it gets a little bit more confusing.
Talk specifically about Epstein, but we have different tiers of response if we identify an inmate who appears to be having suicidal thinking. And I came into the Bureau as a psychologist. I worked with lots of suicidal inmates. I was warden in our psychiatric facility in Butner, and I know how difficult it is to always be able to predict who is suicidal and who is not. But once an inmate is identified as potentially suicidal, we have a suicide watch operation that we can place them in. It's a very stark, very difficult setting where everything is stripped from the room except a mattress. They get a coarse gown-like to wear that cannot be twisted in any way that they could hang themselves from it. They have one mattress and one blanket, and they are watched constantly. There's nothing else in that room.
Was Mr. Epstein on suicide watch?
Yes, he was.
Ooh,
however, the average time on...
Did you see the face right there? Was Mr. Epstein on suicide watch? Now, notice how she wasn't specific that he was on suicide watch when he actually, quote-unquote, committed suicide.
Gown-like to wear that cannot be twisted in any way that they could hang themselves from it. They have one mattress and one blanket, and they are watched constantly. There's nothing else in that room.
Was Mr. Epstein on suicide watch?
Yes, he was. However, the average time on suicide watch is only about 24 hours because it is such a stark and actually depressing situation. We then can move them to another tier of observation, which is called psychological observation.
Did that happen in this case?
I can't speak specifically, but I am sharing this with you so that you understand our procedure, sir.
So she's trying to, say, I can't tell you that's what we did, but maybe that's what we did.
They then can move to another tier, which is psychological observation, where they get their clothes back. They're in a more normal setting. They are
because all the victims of Mr. Epstein have to have their heart ripped out, else they'll never see justice.
All right, so let's just stop it there, and let's fast forward to Ben Sasse. Again, Ben Sasse does a much better job, in my opinion, than Lindsey Graham, although Lindsey Graham did have his moments. So let's see, I think we're right here.
Any requests and advertisements for jobs for the psychologists and psychological treatment specialists that we need to run some of these specialized programs at Thompson. We're not getting takers, and we're just...
And by the way, they're trying to make, this hearing is really trying to say, oh, we're underfunded, we're under-resourced, we need 3,000 more employees. All of this stuff is because of the system. Oh, we're so deprived. Give me a break. Are we back to buffering again?
It's going to keep plugging at it. We will get them filled, but it's just taking us a while.
Senator Sasse.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Sawyer, can you think of any other incidents in the history of the BOP that have caused as much crisis for public trust for your institution as Epstein's death?
I can only speak for since 1976 when I joined the Bureau. I don't know prior to that, but I would say it's probably gotten the most public attention.
There are lots of taxpayers and citizens who've never thought about the BOP, and you have lots of good, patriotic, hardworking folks there. I get that. But in terms of a crisis of public trust in general, but also in terms of your workforce, this death happened in the middle of August, early August. It's Thanksgiving, and you're here to testify today, and you say you're not allowed to speak about this incident. I think that's crazy. Can you distinguish among types of investigations, at least for us? Because I'm aware of at least 3 Epstein investigations. You got a whole bunch of women who were raped by this guy. This is a sex trafficking ring in the United States. This guy had evidence. He's got co-conspirators, and there are victims out there who want to know where the evidence has gone. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different investigations? I understand there's at least one that you're trying to maintain justice not to speak about, but there's a third one outside, which is why Epstein was in your institution to begin with.
Yeah, and that, sir, is completely out of my...
I get that.
Let's stop it right there. Again, I keep getting bumped off by YouTube. There's not much I can do about this, guys. I got to rethink the live stream agenda. But if you're listening to this, he's talking about how he knows of at least 3 investigations. She's going to talk about 2. He talks about the initial New York one. And let's go to her one more time.
There's a lot here where
two that
DOJ has failed. There's a lot here that BOP has failed. Let's just be clear so we have a level set for everybody in this room. You're in your job because of this crisis. Right? You come here today and you say you can't testify about it, but the reason you're director now is because the last guy got fired, right?
Senator, I can't tell you what I don't know. I have received no information from the FBI investigation yet, nor no information from the Inspector General. Once those entities go into one of our facilities, we are forbidden from talking to anybody in the institution. We can send in a team and look at wherever there might have been a security flaw or something, but we are not allowed to talk to anybody in our institutions about anything that happened over the Epstein.
With all due respect, you still have an obligation to speak to the girls who were raped by this guy today. You may not have to speak about every particular of the guards that were arrested last night, but the fact that there is an ongoing attempt by the United States government to find out if there's still any evidence about the co-conspirators, you do have an obligation to speak to those girls who were raped today. You may not speak about the specifics of the charges against those 2 guards this morning who were taken into custody, but more broadly, you should be able to unpack, have we changed any processes about how cases like this are handled? It's been more than 90 days, and you said, I think your quote was, we treat every inmate the same. We believe in America that every individual has equal dignity, but not every inmate has equal value for future criminal investigations. Jeffrey Epstein was still to testify in a case. Somebody who's already been convicted, who may be on suicide watch, there are lots of good reasons to not want that guy to be able to kill himself. This is different, because it isn't just about the individual inmate who might kill themselves. It's about the fact that that bastard wasn't able to testify against his other co-conspirators. So they have a lot more priority for your institution, don't they?
Senator, pretty much all of our inmates that are in any of our jail facilities are pretrial. They're still yet to testify, to be involved, to share information on other cases. I don't know what evidence you're asking of me. If you're saying, was there any evidence in his room, in his possession at the time?
No,
that was all confiscated by the FBI.
In his brain, and in the cameras, and in the tapes that the American public well understands appear to not be urgent enough for the Department of Justice.
No, it's very urgent for the Department of Justice, and it's all been confiscated by the FBI, and it's all part of their investigation. That's why none of that is shared with the Director of the Bureau of Prisons or anyone in the Bureau until the investigations are completed. Once those are completed, I'd be very happy to come up here and talk with any one of you that want to hear everything about we glean from those investigations. But until I have that information, there's nothing I can tell you. If I don't have the information, I cannot share anything with you.
Then how what?
Guys, I was sent here not to know anything about anything you were going to ask. Don't you understand that? Stop yelling at me, Mr. Sass. Stop making so much sense.
Spread is the problem of sleeping on the job. There are lots of people in the public who think this seems a very convenient excuse. And so tell us, is it a systemic problem? Do we have a lot of people who sleep on the job when they're supposed to be guarding federal inmates?
Yeah, are there? Are there a
We
ton?
have a few, sir, and we have been monitoring the cameras that are existing in every one of our institutions to determine how well and how effectively our inmates are, our staff members are doing their rounds and counts in the institutions. We have found a couple of other instances, and we have immediately referred those to the Inspector General's office, and I'm encouraging that if people just chose not to do their job, we're hoping the U.S. Attorney's Office will pick up those cases and prosecute them for us, because we don't want those people in the Bureau of Prisons. They are dangerous to everybody.
You notice that like she's again trying to pass it off like these people really fell asleep, even though she admitted earlier that the FBI is investigating a criminal enterprise that may have killed the guy. And then she can't really say anything about whether it was a suicide or a homicide because she has no information.
The inmates and the staff, and so we are zealously going about trying to determine which of our employees are good employees and who do their job, and that is the vast majority of the prison staff. But we do have some, I know, out there who obviously choose not to follow policy, choose not to do their job, and we want them gone. I do not want them in our institutions, and I am exploring those very, very carefully to identify them and get them out of our system. Now, if it's a training problem and they didn't know what they were supposed to do, that's our problem. That's management's problem. We have to do a better job.
Are you listening to this? Do you see? Oh, I'm getting upset about nothing. And by the way, Peaceful Warrior says she is a front woman. We need her bosses. Exactly. She really doesn't know anything. She's been given talking points to say. She's like, if they're not trained correctly, if they're sleeping all the time and turning off cameras, by golly, we need to get rid of them.
Training our staff. But if someone is well-trained, well-experienced, and chooses not to do their job, we want them gone. I assure you of that.
I'm at time, so I'll just give you a preview of something I'm going to ask you for the record after the event. You made a really important statement about drone drops of different kinds of contraband into your institutions. That's obviously a new and hard problem. That's a problem against which we have to play defense, but there's also new opportunities for offense. And so what your long-term strategy is inside the institution about cameras is something that I think a lot of us would like to hear more, and I'll send you a letter with some questions. Because Epstein's hallway should have still been monitored by cameras, even if his guards were asleep. And we don't have information about whether or not there were adequate cameras there. And so I think a lot of us would like to understand where technology dollars are going.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Sawyer.
Senator.
Yeah, where are those technology dollars going? And like I said, Ben Sasse absolutely killed it on that. I apologize about the stream stuff, guys. I don't know what else to say. I'm doing everything right. I think that now that YouTube is trying to move everybody into their own beta, that may be the issue. And they want to move people away from third-party streaming apps like XSplit, which I use, which works flawlessly. You can always check out the Periscope stream, I guess. But we're trying to grow here. I'm not trying to send anywhere else. You know, that's why my documentary films are here. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. All free in the documentaries playlist. Make sure to thumb this video up, share it with others on social media, on Reddit, all over the place. And please, subscribe. Become a member of the Burmese Brigade. Let's hit that 40K, then 50K, then 100,000 subscribers, and so on. We just got memberships, so I've got to really get on that. And if you want to financially support me, the way to do so is through the GoFundMe. I love you guys. I'm going to be back with more of that hearing after I go through it. I'm definitely going to have John Kennedy talking to that woman and maybe some others. So I'll see you all on the flip side.